We should reflect on how to move from anticipatory governance to what we like to call anticipatory democracy, making our democratic institutions, governments, and societies really much better at anticipating change and also becoming, therefore, more resilient.
This forum is a possibility to strengthen independent expertise.
How do we make sure our values are not threatened but reinforced by these new technological developments? Because if I come back to the issue of democracy, I think the defining phrase in this probably generation, given all these changes, is take back control.
Giving support, giving quality support, relevant support to those who are the decision makers is extremely important. And making sure that what we do is not just somewhere in an ivory tower, but it is really just flowing into the policy-making process is essential.
The European Union is my great hope that we will be pioneers in making the cyber world safe for democracy.
It really struck me how everyone agreed that we were quite caught by surprise by the digital revolution. We were all very optimistic about its prospects when it began. You know, we thought it would lead to greater connectivity, democracy and openness, and yet it seems as if the opposite has happened. So I think the challenge for governments is to constantly try to think about how we can be surprised, to think the unthinkable, to expect the unexpected.
Probably what happened to democracy is that technology changed the world for something that we were not expecting. We thought we would become more rational because of technology, and we became more emotional. And so if we became emotional, that's why we fear the future.
One of the things about technology is we always have these waves in which we first react enthusiastically to it, then we react in horror to the fact that our optimism turned out to be wrong, and then hopefully we wind up at a more realistic place in terms of what these technologies mean. I hope going forward we get to that realistic equilibrium.
We have to make sure that technology and digitalization becomes inclusive and that everybody will be able to benefit the enormous potential that technology holds.
The greatest threat will be lack of inclusion, lack of economic inclusion, social inclusion and political inclusion. If we don't tackle that, you know that the world is getting richer, but we should also be paying attention to the gap between the rich and the poor.
We're right now at a world population of 7.6 billion, and that will increase to 8.5 billion in the year 2030. What does it mean? Well, there might be more conflicts, there might be issues over natural resources, there's more pressure, but I think the main point really is the gap that we'll see between the rich part of the world and the ones who are left behind.
Nowadays we have a lot of discussions of fake news, of social media, of competing narratives from Russia, from China. So we really need to be sure what the reality is, what are we referencing to when we kind of talk about future scenarios.
I think we need to be aware of what's going on around us, make sure that we know that first, then we can start thinking about what we have to do for the future.
I think it's our human capability of dealing with multi-plurality, multi-novelty and multi-ambiguity. Our systems are not set up for that.
What we need to get us to 2030 is to think beyond just preserving and move into building something new and ambitious based on democratic values, but something beyond what we can already imagine based on what's around us today.
If I meet someone from 2030, I'm going to ask them, did the global community come together to really address the problems of climate change? Did they transform their economies and put them on a path to net zero? Were they able to come to grips with the tremendous changes to food security, water security, extreme weather that the scientists know are going to happen, and we've been unable to rise to the challenge to meet?
I would need several hours of questions. I'd have a lot of questions. But I suppose I'll want to look at how brave the world is in 15 years' time.
I think it will be extremely interesting because it will be probably one of the millennials today, and we are putting so many things on them. The question is, 2030, will they emerge as, I'm 43, will they emerge to be a very normal, boring 43-year-old like myself, or will they have emerged into a new form of a generation that really changed society? I tend to think that usually boring things happen, but I would love to meet them when they are 40-something and see how will they look at the last 10, 20 years.